Hello everyone, welcome once again to Satsang, to your personal communion with your truth. I say your truth, right? But it is the truth. But I always like to point that out because Satsang is not somebody with the truth giving it to somebody who doesn't have it. It's kind of the way we think about it. Right? This isn't university where somebody with knowledge is going to be giving you that knowledge. Satsang is an inner examination to discover the truth that is at the heart of you. The discovery is that the one dispensing the truth and who appears to be dispensing the truth and the one who is receiving it are actually the same. So please bear that in mind, right? With all the questions you would have. Bear in mind that the mind loves to engage in knowledge. For the mind, accumulating knowledge is it's like the Wall Street broker accumulating money. Everything depends on it. The mind is quite greedy for knowledge. There's this kind of underlying assumption that the more I know, the safer I am, or the better off I am. Or even primitively, the more opportunity for me to have a mate and reproduce, based on this accumulation of knowledge. Well, Vedanta means the end of knowledge. And jnana means knowledge of the self. It also means the sublimation of wisdom. Now, it's a very beautiful term, sublimation of wisdom. Sublimation is a very interesting process. It's a very interesting phenomenon that occurs. Normally, water, when it's being as it's heating up, first goes from the solid form of ice into liquid, and as it gets warmer, it then evaporates into the air. So we have the melting and then the evaporation. Well, when it goes from directly from ice to gas, it's called sublimation. It doesn't pass an intermediate state. This is most evident when you see dry ice, and they just take dry ice and put it out into the air, and what happens? Smoke everywhere. That's sublimation. It happens very quick with the dry ice, which is carbon dioxide or liquid carbon dioxide, I think, and as opposed to water. So this sublimation of wisdom is a beautiful metaphor of going directly from right here, wherever you happen to be, wherever your understanding is, not passing any intermediate steps, not passing go, but going directly to the grasping of the ultimate wisdom as your own nature. This is in Buddhism. This is called the sudden path, right? The progressive path and the sudden path. Progressive being more Buddhism of like Tibetan and the various ethnics versions of it, the Vijnana or Theravada, and in Zen it's the Mahayana. It is the instant recognition, the sublimation of wisdom. And this is where I want you to turn your attention to, because this kind of wisdom isn't book learning. It's not knowledge gained. It is not knowledge accumulated. And knowledge can carry with it, I mean, we all need some, right? We all need to function. We all need to be able to do things. We need skills and the like. But there can come with it a great pride of knowledge. I know I had some of that myself at one point. The pride of the academic or the pundit, the one who feels they know so much. There's a story of one of the great pundits, one of the great academics during Buddha's time, had just never been defeated in a debate. And debates were a big deal at that time. They'd be debating important, theological, issues, cosmological issues. But it was there was a high price on it too, because when two teachers would debate, the losers' students would all go become students of the winner. So it was like high stakes poker when these guys would debate. Well, there's one just very famous. I don't know what his name is, so not that famous. Famous then, who had never been beaten. He literally had thousands of students, and he heard about Buddha, who also had at that point thousands of students around him, and he said, "Okay, I'm going to challenge this guy. I can beat him." And it was a really big deal. So he met the Buddha, and he challenged him to the debate. And Buddha says, "Well, okay, I will debate you on one condition." He says, "Sure, what is it?" He says that you stay here with me, and you don't speak for 1 year. You just listen. Now, Buddha had thousands of followers. This was like the creme de creme. This was the peak of his career. He agreed to it. Well, a year comes and goes, and at the end of the year, the Buddha says, well, the year's up. Are you ready to debate? And the man says, "You tricked me. He says, I've got nothing left to say." A year spent in utter silence, not relying on his knowledge, not relying on his personality, and simply absorbing that at the energy field of a Buddha. He completely lost interest to it, and he sent all his students to go to be students of the Buddha. So knowledge is useful to a certain extent, but know when this quest for knowledge is just the greed of the mind, just its endless desire to possess, to know, to feel certain, to take pride in what is known, to argue with others. I mean, you can't spend 30 seconds on Facebook without somebody putting something out there as if they know it, very proud of what they know. These days, it'd be either a conspiracy theory or somebody who's against a conspiracy theory, or various kinds of not pleasant, not educated, not honest inquiry or discourse about something that's important. Just taking a position and throwing spitballs at each other. So the true knowledge, jnana knowledge, Jnana is the word in Sanskrit. This true sublimation of wisdom is what I invite you all to reach for. And let your questions come from that. Let your questions be, what is the question that is going to lead me most quickly in sublimation to that wisdom that in which all questions are answered. Everything is known, because you find that everything that's known, the only thing you wanted to know was yourself. And with the knowledge of the self comes the knowledge of everything. So, on that note, I will say hello once again to everyone and start moving through the list here of questions, because I see there's some that popped up right away, right after Roberto said hello, before he could even get his question in. Sabugo said, "Hello, Master. Good to see you again." Good to see you. Could you please, with your wise words, elaborate on this statement from Papa G? Seeing is being. Many thanks. Seeing is being. And I really wish I knew the context in which he was saying it. I could get the whole surround of what he was saying. 3 words taken all by themselves like that could go in a variety of different directions. But let me take it in the direction that I think is most likely that he was pointing at. We think of ourselves as an object, a person that has certain attributes. As a person, as a being, as any kind of an entity, we can know things. There's knowingness, there's seeing, there's all of the senses, there's thinking and remembering and associating. There's all sorts of sensing and emoting going on. And we think of all of those as characteristics of this personal self. So that if there's seeing happening, there's someone who is seeing, someone who is the source, and of which seeing is an attribute. Same of knowing, which is probably closer to what he was really talking about. That knowingness is an attribute of some object. There's me, and I experience seeing, which makes seeing and me 2 different things. Matter of fact, seeing, the seer and what is seen, 3 different things. And you're in the realm of this duality. Well, Papaji was a non-dual teacher. So they wouldn't have been 3 different things to him. They would have been one thing alone. And this is where it gets subtle and takes some contemplation, to really, really ponder over this, puzzle over it. Because the mind can't go here, because when you're not talking in dualistic terms, this and that, subject and object, the mind cannot work. The use of mind, the mental capacities, the ability to manipulate symbols, which is what thinking is all about, reason and all of that, requires duality. It is dualistic by nature. Language is dualistic by nature. It's always the description of one thing in terms of another, comparing, contrasting, remembering, associating, categorizing, right? It requires many things. So in the realm of the pure oneness, there aren't many things, right? The divisions have to disappear. And so what then happens? How do I then know? How then do I see? Well, seeing, and let's take it, seeing not just referring to physically seeing objects, but seeing as it's used more metaphorically, as in understanding, as in comprehending, as in perceiving, and in grasping. I see your point. I see what's happening, right? There's a seeing that's taking place. That there's a certain recognition of something. Now, what if that seeing was just pure consciousness? That it wasn't tied to a body, that it wasn't tied to a form, that it wasn't tied to a person. That in fact, seeing was nothing other than consciousness cognizing. Well, you wouldn't have 2 then anymore, would you? You wouldn't have something that was seeing. You would have only the seeing. Seeing self-existent. This is the nature of consciousness. It is self-existent knowingness. And so seeing and being are one and the same. There is not a being who sees. There is not a being who knows. It is not an attribute of something that exists independently of it. The knowingness is the beingness. To see is to be. To know is to be. Sat, Chit, Ananda. Being, consciousness, and bliss. Or existence, awareness, and peace. Equanimity, contentment. It is only in our minds that we we separate it all out and think that the seeing and the seer are two different things. And you can even take it one step further, right? That even what is seen doesn't exist independently of it. Not only is the seer and the seeing one, the seer, the seeing, and what is seen are one. So being is knowing. And like I said, this is not something your mind can grasp, because I'm using two words, right? I'm using knowing and being, or knowing and seeing, or three words: seer, seeing, and seen. And so for the mind, they are three things. It cannot collapse them into one, because the mind cannot grasp one. To grasp one, thought stops. There's just the knowingness. So it is something you ponder, you puzzle over, you inquire into. You look at anything, look at any object, right? The computer that's sitting in front of you right now. And simply ponder, does it exist independently of my seeing of it? Do I have evidence that there's this objective thing that I'm looking at it? This is what's called a direct path inquiry. Based completely on your experience of seeing and the seen, there's nothing in the experience itself that tells you that there's two there. Just like your dream at night appears to be you having a conversation or an experience with someone or something, but in fact there's nobody there. It is happening completely subjectively. It appears to be two, it in fact is one. So what is the dream made of? It's made of mind. It's made of the dream material. What's the dreamer, the one in the dream, made of? The same dream material. And all of it must be arising out of the nature of the ultimate seer of it. Because no one in the dream is real. Nobody in the dream wakes up. You know, the guy on TV can't change the channel. Right? So they are one with the actual dreamer, right? Which is Vishnu, to be exact. So I hope that covers it for you, Sabago. I do hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Rosario says hello from Madrid, and Roberto says, oh, hold on, I'm missing. Let me see again. Could you please? Oh, she just did it twice, or he just did. I don't know if Sabago is I don't know if that name is masculine or feminine. Anyway, hello Rosario. Roberto, should you create reality or experience better said? Do you create the people in that experience as well? And he added later, what do you mean by feeling the body? Is it literal? Well, Roberto is going through my latest class. I did the 4 powers of creation. So let me kind of break this down a bit. What you experience, what everybody experiences, is not the reality of the thing. Right? It is always our perception of the thing. So when we're talking about creation, I'm not talking about you're creating your house, you're creating your car. You're not creating that. I'll leave that for a later discussion. Right? But the only thing you ever experience is your perception of it. And your perception of what you are experiencing is subject to attention, belief, and identity. And then eventually discrimination, which are the four powers. So when you experience a person, right, somebody else, you don't know every detail about them. You meet somebody, you shake their hand, you have a conversation, you get a feel about them, you hear the way they speak, and all the time that's going on, the mind is associating it with memories and past experiences, attempting to come up very quickly with an impression as to who they are. And that impression can actually get stuck so quickly that you will walk around thinking that's who they are. You'll interact with them, and it has nothing to do with who they are. And we've all had that experience of knowing somebody and thinking they're one way, and a little bit later, sometimes a long time later, you find out, who is this? I don't know who they are. It's because the mind very quickly, it's the nature of the storyteller mind, very quickly creates an impression, an image, an idea, concept of who this is. Because the moment the mind knows, then it knows how to interact, right? This is why when you first meet somebody, there's always a little bit of nervousness when you first meet somebody. It's not that you're nervous, it's not that you're afraid. This is what it feels like when the body kind of goes on alert, when the nervous system goes on alert to try to figure out in this new environment how to navigate this territory. Right? And so what ends up is you're not really engaging with the person as they are. You are engaging with your perception of it, which means, in a very literal sense, the person you are dealing with is a creation of your own mind. It is literally a creation of your own mind. So you could actually answer, do you create the people and the experiences as well? The answer is yes, you do. And there's no way out of this. This is how perception works. Until the discrimination becomes more ingrained in us and more understood, that you begin to realize that it is just a perception. And you begin to discern the perceptions of your own mind, which is that first bodhisattva practice, which I put into the course. Perceiving, becoming adept at perceiving at discriminating the perceptions of your own mind. What is a perception of me and what is really there? And you can't even begin to talk about what's really there until you've gotten through these layers of perception. So for all intents and purposes, the people you meet are your creation. We can take it even deeper in a bit, but just for all intents and purposes, for practical purposes, if you really want to master being fully present and fully aware and open to all the beautiful surprises that life has in store, you recognize that you are interfacing with your own creation. It is all in your mind. If you recognize that, you'll be discriminating the perceptions of your own mind, and you won't be holding on to them so tightly. And then people will be allowed to change. New aspects of them will begin to appear, which will have the effect of, first off, your relationships will become more genuine. They'll become more intimate, because you'll be more and more present with them. And secondarily, you'll just be open to more of life, more of the surprises of life. Because the primary perception that is driving all of the other perceptions is the perception of yourself, which was also created. It also is not real. It is also an image in the mind based on a little bit of information, but this one we capture ourselves in. Just like if I hold an idea about somebody, I'm literally holding them prisoner in that. And oftentimes I don't want them out of that prison. That's what happens in families. People get into their role and nobody wants you out of that role. They don't want you to grow, right? Everybody's had that experience to a certain degree. But we do it to ourselves. I put myself in that box and I keep myself in that box. And then it seems like an enormous amount of effort to kind of grow or evolve. Well, yeah, it's going to be. But if everything you know about yourself is a creation of you, you can drop it. You can let it go. And it really can become that easy. Now, your other question about when I say feeling the body, is it literal? Quite. Absolutely literal. Simply feel your body. That's it. But the key is attention on the feeling, and you'll notice how much the mind wants to comment, narrate, judge, categorize, describe, compare this feeling to something else, especially to some better thing, right? This feeling, it judges it. It's bad. I don't like this feeling. I want to get rid of this feeling, which sets up the inner conflict with yourself, which actually intensifies and holds on to the feeling. But if you just feel your body, with no judgment, no agenda, not trying to change anything, you're just being present, you are doing the most powerful meditation that there is. And this is the basis on which real inquiry can begin to sink in more deeply. The key is feeling it without the story, because a feeling comes up. The feeling never says, I'm a bad feeling. It's just a feeling. It's the mind that says, this is a bad feeling, I don't like it, I want to get away from it. So that's all reactive, it's all secondary. And the feeling itself is absolutely innocent. It's pure. It's neither negative nor positive. It's just what it is. Everything, every feeling is neutral. So, hopefully that answers it for you, Roberto. Anna G, hi GP. All the way back to the top here. I missed you there. Abiding in self, I am. Loving you. Beautiful. Beautiful, Anna. There's Robbie in Romania, David and Lane in Southeast England. Hello, guys. Ursula from Middle Island. Hello, Ursula. Dale in Boston. Roberto, my understanding, watch the thought, feel the emotions, observe the reaction. What comes afterwards? Right now, for you, nothing. Know what's next. Just watch the thought without engaging. Feel the emotion, the sensations in the body. Notice how it reacts, right? But that feeling of, okay, well, now what? That's part of the reaction. It wants to do something. It wants to change something. Notice that that's an even subtler reaction, right? No next. What you're doing, there is not a next step. That's it. Your mind's not going to like that, because it always wants to see something as a means to an end, right? Okay, I'm doing this, and this, now what? Nothing. No next. That's it. You just do that. Just be there as presence. Wonderful. Wonderful. Namaste from Ava. Hello, Ava. Hi, Patricia is here. From Vancouver.com. Greetings, GP. Big love from the Isle of Wight. Nice. How do you deal with a narcissistic coworker who catches you by surprise in front of the team? Well, I'll tell you a story once. As a consultant, I was working at Wells Fargo Bank, and that's when I actually designed the international ATM system. And in the process, I worked for a manager who was extremely difficult. Unfortunately, she wasn't my direct manager. And she asked me to do a research on this particular project and give them, this is what we should do. So I did. And I came back. And in front of everybody in the room, she says, this is the worst report I've ever seen. This is absolutely wrong. I don't know where you came up with this nonsense, right? And I'm sitting there, okay. I'm like one of the best people who do this. All right. And you could see she had gone off. Something inside her had just gone. It was out of whack, right? It wasn't just a questioning. It was just venomous. Everybody in the room was kind of going, what's going on? But as I sat there looking at her, I said, I got it. She was railing about it, but what she really meant is, I wanted a different answer. I don't want the truth. I don't want the right thing. I want this. So I had a couple of conversations with her, And I went back and I just handed her what she wanted. Oh, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. Right. That project actually went nowhere, and the ones I did actually do right were very, very successful. Right. In the moment, the first thing that you start with is just, and you can do it even right now or anytime you like, is just, close your eyes and picture yourself back in the room, being ridiculed or confronted or caught off guard, right? Purposely by somebody who wants to push you down, and just picture that in your mind and all the feelings that go with it, and then just be with the feelings without reacting to them, right? Because your mind's going to want, this is terrible, this shouldn't be happening, how do I got to get out of here? And that's not going to do you any good, right? If the boss does that, the mind, there is no way out, right? You're very much in a position that can lead to traumatization, because you can't fight with them, they're the boss, and you can't run away, because if you run away, you lose your job. So you're kind of stuck in this place. So the first thing is to just come to terms with the feeling that's going on and recognizing it's a powerful feeling, because you really can't do much. The fight and flight is not available to you, right? So you're kind of in this position. You have to take it, which is humiliating, right? I would be looking for another job for sure. I would be looking around to see what else I could get, either within the company or somebody else. If it's possible, once you've cleared here, where you recognize it's happening, you're really present with the nervous system, because if you're present with it, that energy doesn't have to turn into a trauma. It can actually be diffused. The body needs fight or flight, but wisdom can actually provide the an inner environment that will diffuse the energy that would otherwise become a trauma. And once you've reached that kind of a state of equanimity, you'll be clearer as to how to take steps. You might even be able to talk to them. Right? You might even be able to point out, well, there's a better way in which you could have told me that and not embarrassed me in front of everybody, or you could have come to me privately if there's something not up to standard in my work. But before you can have that kind of a calm conversation as somebody of equal authority, even though he's in the hierarchy, they're higher, he or she, you have to come to that place of that inner authority, which is being present. So all you have to do is recognize there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You're not flawed in any way. This is the way the nervous system reacts. It's what it does. It was in a very tense position. There's not much you could do. There wasn't anything you could do, right? Except to just sit there and take it. And I know what it's like. I know what the mind does. I know from the moment that happens, the meeting could have gone on for another 2 hours, but you weren't there, right? And at times like that, you can also use things like EFT to help calm the nervous system. If you can just rub the sides of your fingers like this, right, under the table, so that it's not noticed. It can be quite stealth, rubbing right around the top of your knees, your wrists. You can even do the EFT points on your face just by rubbing it a little bit or something like this. That will help, or rubbing like the karate chop point, all of the various points. If you just massage them a bit with a little bit of pressure, has the same effect as tapping on them. So the boss is yelling, "You're not doing this," although it might be kind of funny. But it just helps calm the whole nervous system. 'Cause the important thing is for you to get to that place of inner strength and non-reactivity, and then you'll clearly see how the particulars, the steps to take to reconcile this issue. And if it can't be reconciled there, doors will open for you to be out of there, be someplace else. So thank you, .com. I like that. Hello, Crispin, my friend in Switzerland. Where can physical illness have its origin, and what is its purpose? Well, all illness, be it mental, emotional, or physical, is the system out in discord with the environment, right? And of course, we live in a highly toxic world. Well, Switzerland is quite nice. It's a lot cleaner. In general, Europeans in general have less toxicity than we do in the U.S. It's not absent by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just on steroids here in the U.S. So physical illnesses are no different. You want to eliminate as much of the toxic environment as you can, as much as the stress that you can. Watching the foods that you eat, cutting out sugars, processed foods, and that sort of thing. And in fact, even people in your life who are stressful or problematic, cut them out too, right? Just anything to let the environment harmonize with the physical environment, and with that relatively stabilized, then you can look at things that have just kind of accumulated over time, right? Toxins that have built up, that maybe you need to detox yourself. Emotional toxins, anger that might be hanging around, frustration, disappointment, fears, and the like, that are really no longer serving you, that can be purged from the system. Now, all of that said, whenever there's an illness, and again, I'm not a doctor, right? They will have a very different interpretation of all of these things. But the illness can have emotional and mental causes as well. Traumas can create illness because traumas are energy stuck in the body. And when energy is stuck in the body, energy going to contain that energy, to keep it from spilling out, which is what the trauma is, will be sapping energy from other places, right? There's X amount of energy that everybody has, and it's quite a bit, but it's finite. Right? So the energy that I have, the best use of it is when it is used for creative expression. And when it is maintaining the suppression or repression of some kind of traumatic material, the energy required to do that is taking away from other more creative, more intelligent, more resourceful functions we could be doing. So finding the way to alleviate those stressors or those traumas is what it's about. That's what inner work is all about. That's what inner reconciliation is about. And you simply start with being present with the physical symptoms themselves without any kind of story about it. Even the name given by diagnoses. Now again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not saying don't go get things diagnosed. That would be irresponsible on my part. But all diagnoses are generalizations, right? This symptom, this symptom. Well, you've got this. Now there'll be variations on that, and each doctor will deal with that individually. But basically, it's a generalization of particular symptoms. What I say is, be present with your symptoms and don't give them a name. Just be present with them, the feeling of them in the body, without judgment, without anything. And then you might even be able to open a dialogue with it. Well, why are you here? What are you protecting me from? What's the real issue with the energy? And the body is very intelligent. It will find ways to communicate with you, and it could be very, very simple adjustments it asks for. But the problem I have with modern medicine and modern science is that it's in the head. Everything is dictated by the head. Everything is, this is what it should be, and we're going to force it to do it. That's what pharmaceuticals and all that sort of stuff. There's no conversation with it. There's no respect for it, having an intelligence greater than our own. I mean, it's kind of for me, it's the height of arrogance. And again, I'm not a doctor, and doctors would tell me I'm full of all sorts of nasty materials, diagnose me. But it is my observation. And I have seen physical illnesses in people mitigated by simply having this open, allowing relationship with the symptoms themselves. Right? Again, not to dismiss or tell you not to do any of the thing that you need to do with it in terms of our traditional medical approach. Traditional in the modern sense, definitely not traditional in looking at all of history. Our modern technological methods. But in addition to that, you can look at it strictly from just being in a relationship with the symptoms as having something to tell you. And again, EFT is a very powerful tool for being present with those symptoms and giving the energy permission to dissipate in any way that it needs to. So there you are. How's that, Crispin? Robbie, is it really, really true that the future time does not in fact exist? I know it seems true, but to grasp that, even the next 5 minutes are not available until those become the present moment is hard. Yes, it's hard because it is impossible for the mind to think strictly in terms of right now. Because with right now, there's no thinking. Without a thought of a future, be it 5 years or 5 minutes or 5 seconds, there's no thought. Without a thought of the past, there's no thought. So the now has no thought. It is just now. There's no mind in this moment. A thought about the future or the past appears in this moment. Right? And it is always a thought. The actual now is never in the future, obviously, and there's no access to the future. The now is not a moment in time. The now is the timelessness witnessing the flow of events which we have misnamed time. It is simply a sequence of events. That's it. We are watching change take place. And we call that change time. And that's all time is, the relative distance between two events. And so right now is all you ever experience. And the now itself requires no thought. You don't have to think about the now, you're there. You know, if you're walking down the street holding someone's hand that you love, you don't have to think about holding their hand. You're holding their hand. You know, later on you might remember it, how wonderful it was, and you may think into the future of when it's going to be again. Right? But the actual experience of this moment requires no thinking. Matter of fact, thinking interferes with it. If I start having a thought about the future, I'm not now. I'm not experiencing now. I'm experiencing an imaginary event that I can never possibly ever experience, no matter how far out you go. The misunderstanding is that the now is a moment, one of a sequence of moments in the flow of time. Time, the reality, now simply a time slice of it. Time is infinitely small. The truth is, the now is all there is. It is the unchanging background. And what you are witnessing is simply change. That's all. You're not even witnessing something changing, because the change would have to stop long enough for there to be a thing. All you're witnessing is change. And the only thing there is the now. So you're watching simply the modulations and permutations of now. And in now, there's no past, and there is no future. Right? There isn't a past. There's only a thought of a past. There isn't a future. There's only a thought of a future. You've never experienced the past. You've never experienced the future. No one ever has. No one can. And so, because of memory and anticipation, we project ideas of the past and the future. And that's all they ever are. But we believe in them so strongly, we think this moment was created by the past. And we think this moment is creating the future. But there's no sequence of events. There's only the permutations and the modulations of consciousness, which is the now. Does that help understand, clarify it for you, Ravi? It's something to ponder, because the nature of your question is to grasp that is hard, right? It's hard because the mind has to think in terms of time. Right? In timelessness, there is no mind, right? In the timeless, there's no sequence of events. Right? So there is no past. The now is not a moment in time. It is the infinite now. It's the eternal, ever-present now. It's never not now, is it? You can't get out of now. Go ahead and try. Right? That is everybody's experience of the only thing we ever experience. But it's hard only because we're always thinking in terms of what was and what will be. That's the nature of the thinking mind. It's always what was, what will be. The only legitimate use, really, of the mind is to describe the now. But as you can tell, the very act of describing it creates the illusion of time. So hopefully that'll help you, give you something to ponder over. Dale, when you've reached a high level of being able to instantly know who you really are, is it good advice to simply allow yourself to get lost in the robot only until suffering rears its head? No. It is not good advice to get lost in the robot, because the robot doesn't really exist. The robot is just a thought. You don't want to get lost in that which doesn't exist. You don't want to lose yourself in the conditioning. And in fact, you can't. You're aware of the robot. Right? You have to forget who you are in order to get lost in the robot. In other words, to be identified with the robot. And for those of you who may not be familiar, that's a term I use to refer to the conditioned patterns of the mind and body and emotions. I refer to it as a robot because it's robotic. We identify with it, and so I think these conditioned patterns are myself. But as you begin to grow in spiritual wisdom, you see you are not your conditioning, and the whole mistake of life has been mistaken the conditioning of the body-mind as myself. Now it's just conditioning. These thoughts aren't my thoughts, but they form a pattern, the pattern that they got put into many, many years ago and are still kind of grinding along with some momentum. All the patterns of sensation, emotion, and thought are all that. They are all that creation. They are all that conditioned patterns. And awakening to who you are is the realization that I am not that I am this timeless consciousness that is witnessing it. But that realization doesn't immediately expunge all the conditioning. So it's still going to be there, right? And you may find yourself being drawn back into it. Do not get lost in it again. Do not think that's good advice. It is not, right? Because you can get sucked back in there and lose track of who you are. You are not that. Period. End of story. Don't think anything else. You notice that it's there, and you are the self. Right? You instantly know who you are would mean that you forgot for a moment. The self doesn't forget. So the remembering and the forgetting are also part of the illusion that you can step back from. As Muji put it, I am, before the idea that I could forget or the idea that I needed to remember was believed. The self cannot forget and has no need to remember. The self is not operating on its self-knowledge. It is operating on being and knowing as one. So, no, always recognize the robot as the robot. Now, that doesn't mean you can't enjoy life. You don't have to live like a monk. You can live quite beautifully and vivaciously with juice and passion and fun, but you won't get caught in the attachment to those things that is the nature of the conditioned mind, also known as the ego. So the robot and the ego are one, and I don't think I don't think you'd say that allowing yourself to get lost in the ego would be good advice. Thanks, Dale. Hello, Jay. Good to see you. Ooh, yay, I made it to the live. Yay. Hey, Susanna. Hello, Facebook user. Michael Sarveni. Hi, GP. I heard a non-dual teacher say he could push someone into enlightenment, but didn't think it was a good idea. Can you do this? I think I'm ready for this. I've heard rare stories of some, matter of fact, no, the only one was the Himalayan master who did it to Swami Rama. And he was all ready and he just put his thumb on his forehead. And it took one little thing, but even he himself said that yes, this is what was supposed to happen in that moment. And so he did. I can't. If I could, I would. I can't do that. It's not the kind of thing. Remember, this is not a personal power. If that was going to happen for somebody, and it was going to happen through me, it would happen in whatever way. But it wouldn't be like something I could do, like a skill I had, right? It's not like that. None of this is a skill. None of this even belongs to me, right? I'm merely saying what's coming to me, right? And in fact, that's even stretching it. Coming to me. Who's the me that it's coming to? There's no me that it's coming to. It's not like I'm here, GP is sitting here listening to wisdom and then repeating it. It's happening as one single flow, and there is no GP. There's only the primordial wisdom revealing itself to the primordial wisdom. So there's not someone here that's dispensing it. So I'd have to hear the rest of that, what the teacher says about that. But my understanding is that it's not a personal skill or personal possession. There's just kind of a vibratory thing that takes place, but everybody has to do the inquiry themselves. Right? It is a personal realization, as Buddha put it. I do believe you are ready for the push, but don't look to anybody else to push you. You're standing on the cliff, believe me. Maybe just a little breeze come along, and off you go. Play on in Sweden, hello sir. Marty Hale in Vancouver, hello Marty. Merk Goff, good to see you sir. Hey GP, greetings from cold Scandinavia. Hope you're well, no questions. Been trying to do just being the whole day, and all I got was exhaustion. T-shirt, you got this. Yeah, it'll be exhausting trying to be. Right? That's the mind. Trying to figure out what being is and then trying to do it. It is a recognition that you are being. right? Are you not? Are you not being, trying to be? It really, the language you use is important. What you're really talking about is trying to keep your attention on it. And yes, that'll be exhausting. You don't need to do that. Right? Just when it's there, it is a recognition that it's always here. That you're not coming and going from it. Attention is just moving out from it and back to it. Right? From you, back to you. But you are that being. There's nothing else you need to do about it. And you are whether the attention is focused on it or not. And nobody can maintain that attention 24/7. Buddha couldn't do it. Right? It's just this recognition that I am that. This is what I am. And I am that no matter where attention happens to go. And sometimes attention will be on your screen right now, listening to me, I hope, and not being distracted. And I'm pointing your attention back to this mutual awareness. You could even call it an undivided attention, where you're aware of both at the same time. To what is attention always reporting? It's always reporting to you, that the one who is. Attention doesn't exist without you, right? But you can exist without attention. You can have just complete blank emptiness. We do it every night in deep sleep. Right? So that isn't a requirement. So yeah, it'll be totally exhausting. Trying to, I am the self, I am the self, I am the self. Oh, I got distracted. I am the self, I am the self, I am the self. Ding, oh, I got a text. I am the self, I am. Don't do it. You don't need to. Keep reminding yourself, I am the self. And whenever attention is there, just abide as the self. And when attention goes out, recognize that attention is always reporting to the self. What else could it be reporting to? It's not reporting to somebody over there. It's reporting to you. So the very fact that attention is there at all means you are there. It doesn't have to be a conscious thought like that. The only way any experience can have, even the experience of a total delusion, is that you are there. That's the reality. You, the self, are always there. Right? Even when Merck is struggling, right? Something has been watching Merck, trying to be the self, trying to do just being the whole day, and getting exhausted. Isn't there something that's watching the entire thing? Maybe even having a bit of a laugh about it? Isn't the seeking and the seeker being watched by the very thing that's being sought? The answer is yes. Hank Merck. There's the flying shroomy. Good to see you. Hi, GP. What advice do you have for young people after awakening? I have no motivation for further education or career, but I do need a job to survive. How to be a part of society with this understanding? Oh my goodness. Especially as this is happening with younger folks. Well, it's kind of an individual thing. And I have to tell you that the having no motivation for further education of career is very normal. It doesn't mean that don't consciously try to shut it down. And think that if all of a sudden I did have some kind of a motivation to learn some skill or do something, even if it's just to make money, don't think that's wrong or bad. This is how the awakening is unfolding itself, right? And integrating into your entire life. That's what you're meaning. How to live after awakening, right? Yeah, the other motivations that drove so many people. You're not going to be a hedge fund manager. I can pretty much guess to that. But it doesn't mean that there won't be things of interest, there won't be skills to gain. You know, when I learned how to program computers, the only reason I did it is I was working at a shipping dock, right? I was making like $5 an hour, which, and supporting two kids on it. So I wanted to have a better life for my children. I needed, things like that. It was just, just getting by. I was working extra jobs and doing all sorts of things. And this is before the PC existed, by the way. This is the late 70s. It hadn't come into existence yet. But they had these computers made by Hewlett-Packard, very expensive things. And I realized that one day that what I was packing into the box was a computer. And I heard that computer programmers made good money. So I said, And I asked the guy, the inventory center manager where I was working, if I could use it. Right? They had one in the lab. If I could use that. And I went and got myself a book on programming. And eventually, let's see, 2 years later, but a year and a half later, because I just developed some stuff that had helped them save a lot of money, and with a little bit of nudging, they moved me from Chicago to San Francisco. I started doing other kinds of things. 3 years after that, I went into business for myself. That was 1984, and I never worked for anybody ever again. And I actually make very good living, all the way up until I just decided I didn't want to do any of that anymore. I was still doing stuff like this, spiritual inquiry and teaching. I was doing music. I was doing voice. I was doing all sorts of different things at the time. But that was my only motivation. I was not interested in the engineering. I was a music major. I had no interest in engineering and that kind of stuff. But I said, yeah, those guys make a lot of money. That is literally what I said. Those guys make a lot of money. Maybe I could do that. So life has a beautiful way of unfolding itself. Just if you just are true to the awakening, cherishing the awakening, deepening the awakening, it will permeate the system. In the beginning, it feels like I have no motivation for anything. I don't want to learn anything. Education doesn't matter anymore, career, and they won't, because by their old definition, education in this culture and career and stuff, they're not going to have any appeal to somebody who's discovering inner freedom. They're very binding, right? And so, but that doesn't mean some new, fresh kind of things aren't going to happen, and because they will. New kind of things will get your interest. New forms of expression. Your only job is to continue to deepen the awakening. Continue with the inquiry. Just be really open to allowing everything within you to begin to emerge. All of the old stuff, the old robotic patterns and stuff, to come out, be seen, and pass away. And let yourself just kind of deepen into that freedom. And doors will open. They will. The next step for your personal life, the next step for relationships, the next step for something to do. Maybe it'll be a career, maybe it won't. It could be a series of jobs. For the first 10 years, it was nothing but a series of jobs for me. There was no career at all. That happened later, right? So, by the way, that didn't happen. I was 29 when I got, was that right? But 27? Yeah, 27 when I got that job. And it was about 2 years later before I moved. And then it was 3 years after that, so it was like 32, when I actually started my own business, and that I could actually consider it a career. So things have a beautiful way of unfolding. Your human life, you'll find that life takes care of life. Your human life will be taken care of. And it'll be full of surprises, and it'll be full of fun, but there won't be the same kind of desperate attachment to it that there is for most people, which is, I've got to get a career so I can get a good job, and I got an education to get, and all of that, which in our culture is beginning to fall apart anyway. It doesn't mean that anymore. Young people have kind of seen through that, as we did in the 60s, seeing through the monotony and the stupidity of the 50s. But we got into a new kind of miasma, and And now younger people are beginning to see through that. So thank you for that, Flying Shroomy. Let's see. Tina says Hej. I don't know how to pronounce that. You're from Norman Peterson. So Annette, rock star. Hey everyone. I live together with my boyfriend, and he is a very ambivalent person. One day he tells me he loves me deeply. The other day he tells me he wish I would not exist. That he wouldn't have met that he wouldn't have met me. That he wouldn't be able to stand my company and can't abide me. I don't know what to do, and if it's clever to say in a relationship with him, we have kids together. What would you recommend me? 99 Sanchez, escape Annette. I'd have to agree. If there's an open door to talk about it and say, well, you go back and forth. What do you really feel? Sometimes people aren't capable of having that level of a mature conversation, which means he's not capable of having a relationship. Period. Pure and simple. Until he can be consistent, right? You can't depend on it. And it is the most destabilizing and traumatizing environment a person can be in when it's unstable like that. If it's bad, but it's consistently bad, your nervous system can adjust to it, right? I'd still say get out of it, right? But as was my experience growing up, I didn't know what was going to happen next. I didn't know who she was going to be. I didn't know if I was going to be embraced or slammed, right? I didn't know if I was going to be intruded upon or completely abandoned at any given moment. So there was never a place to stabilize. And because it couldn't stabilize, my nervous system took on a very different characteristic. It was very vigilant. It was always on edge. It was always looking. So it never could really well map the territory, which was quite debilitating. And, it was well into my adulthood before I became even functional. Right? So I know how destabilizing that can be. So if there's enough maturity in him to be able to have a conversation, say, look, this isn't acceptable. Either you want to be with me or don't. You love me or you don't. Which is it? But I can't have this going back and forth, right? So you need to make up your mind, right? And if you don't, well, then I've made up mine, right? If you want to participate, it really depends. If there's still a lot of affection of you towards him, you think there's the relationship still has the potential to be a happy one, then you can say to him, well, this is my requirements, right? Boom, I draw the line here. You have to meet these minimum standards, or we don't go forward. But only that is if you think it's even worth doing. Otherwise, just say, this is not acceptable. It's time for us to split, or just leave. Say, I'm done. Take the kids and go. And find some other place to go. But it's not an acceptable way to be. So I have to agree with 99 Sanchez. It's not a place to be. It's not healthy for you, and it's definitely not healthy for the children. They shouldn't be seeing their mother treated like that. If they're boys, they're going to get the idea that that's the way women are supposed to be treated. If they're girls, they're going to get the idea that that's all they can expect, is that kind of ambivalence. So it's really important. It's really important for you to draw a line. I know that's very, very difficult. If you have support, find support one place or another in order to do that. But that kind of behavior, he's not really in the relationship. He is ambivalent about it. One moment he wants to be loving someone, he wants to be somewhere else, right? So he's got to come to terms with that, right? But you don't have to help him come to terms with that. That's not your job. You can tell him, come to terms with it now, and we have a chance, or you go come to terms with it, and I'm going off somewhere else. So that would be my what I'd have to say about that. And I don't mind being really blunt about relationships. I know a lot of teachers want to pussyfoot around, and find the right way to do it. And it's like, set standards, Set a standard for yourself, set some boundaries, some expectations, and don't compromise them. Not those. There are many things we need to compromise to help working together. Personality traits and things like that. That's another deal. I'm talking about the baseline of love, respect, honoring, and adoration. That has to be there. So, thank you for confiding in me, Annette. Beautiful. Please keep me posted as to what happens. Izziness. Greetings and thank you, GP. You're welcome. Here's Happy Girl. Hey, Happy Girl. I don't understand the statement, there's no such thing as time. What does it mean, and what are the effects of that? Thanks. Well, time is a measurement, right? It's not, we think of it as time, as this river flowing, carrying events in it. But without an event, there is no time. It is only a measurement between events. That's why they say time began with the Big Bang. Why? Nothing was happening. It was a singularity. There's just time. How do you measure time without having two events to measure the distance between them? So now we think now we have the clock, right? Which is this mechanical device that is always ticking off a distance between two events. Every tick is a second, and then they roll up to more, they roll up to more, they roll. But that's really arbitrary. If there were no events, there would be no time. Right? Can you see that? So time isn't a flow that's carrying things along in it. Time is simply our perceiving of change. Obviously, we perceive change. Right? This moment changed for that. My hand just went from there to there. You perceive that. And it took time to get there. There's a perceived distance in terms of how the change is taking place. Slowly, quickly, right? But notice, if nothing changed, would there be time? No, because it's just a measurement. It's not a thing, it's a measurement. But we're so used to a consistently measured time now that we think of it as this entity in and of itself. But without change, there is no time. Which is why you can say the now is timeless, because it doesn't change. It's always right now. You can say the self, consciousness, is timeless, because it doesn't change. It is always consciousness, right now. Consciousness experiences time, what we call time, which is nothing but the series of events. With a memory in which I can compare the event when it happened here and the next event, and the next event, and the next event, and the next event. But even the next event I'm comparing not to an event, right? Only one thing at a time. I'm comparing it to my memory of an event. So event happened, it moves in the memory, another event, and so I'm not even comparing it to this moment. So if I only look at this moment, time stops. No memory, no time. You follow that? Beautiful. Hopefully that explains it for you. That's a pretty beautiful question. Thank you. 99 Sanchez is also talking about what Annette was talking about. My father's also a super toxic person, and even if that led to have 100 times less money, I would have liked if my mom had the balls to take off with us. Wow. Or the ovaries, to be politically correct. No, I get it. Yes, it's better off for everybody. It's better to be just without than to have a love that's toxic, that isn't really love. Have the real thing or don't have anything, and you can set that standard for yourself. Yeah, thank you, 99 Sanchez. Julian Luz. Hello, G. Can you please explain the letting go technique and how surrendering works and how both can be applied and implemented? Well, letting it go as a technique, I mean, it's developed by the release technique, Sedona method, the KISS method. There's a few of them, all as formalized techniques. They all grew out of Lester Levinson, called it the Sedona method when he went to Sedona. It wasn't called that before when he was living in New York. And so they became kind of formalized into a technology, which all of the factions guarded, right, and said theirs was the best. But basically, all it comes down to is letting go. Well, I've forgotten. It's been quite a long time since I looked at those. I don't remember exactly how the technique works. But it's to bring yourself to the point where you simply stop holding on to a particular expectation about an outcome. For me, the term simply allowing is more accurate. Letting go, one of the reasons I kind of parted company with it and developed some other things is because most people interpreted that as letting go means it goes away. And of course, it's pretty much sold that way. You let go enough and you'll get the money, you'll get that the stuff, that when you let it go, it's going to go away. You'll always feel lighter. And I just recognized it simply wasn't true. If I truly let go, it means I'm taking my hands off. I'm not determining what it happened. I'm not expecting it to go away or stay or anything like that. It's like if I'm holding a beach ball underwater, right, which takes a lot of energy, letting go is quite a relief. Okay, I'm just letting it go now. But the moment I let it go, I totally let it go. If the waves keep pushing it back and it bumps into me, I'm still let it go. I'm not trying to make it do anything. I completely allow it to be what it is for as long as it is. Which means now I have no vested interest or expectation about what happens from that moment on. I've truly let go. And when internalize that, I'm letting go of trying to get rid of this feeling, of fighting, of my own resistance to it. There's a feeling here. Okay, I take my hands off it. I let the feeling be there for as long as it needs to be. Now, when you talk about surrender, it's a bit more spiritual or religious, you can put it, right? If on a religious sense, with a personal God, it's me basically saying, not my will, but thine be done. It is saying, I really want to hold on to this, but I'm giving it to you, which is a very powerful devotional position to take. And that sentiment of surrender comes into the non-dual inquiry. The willingness to surrender to truth, to the deepest truth, not necessarily to a personal God, but to an impersonal, universal God or universal consciousness, to surrender my desires, my ambitions, the things I think should be happening, all the expectations that have been enculturated into me from the beginning, all the things that I think should be, all the arguments I have with life, to really surrender them over, recognizing that I don't see the big picture, and that I don't really know what's going on, and most of my resistance is arising out of my ego. You can see that surrender is you are letting go, right? But the problem I have with the techniques is you're always letting go, but there's always a part that wants to get something out of it. It isn't really a letting go of myself. Surrender, I'm letting go of me. I'm putting myself, everything that makes me up, my desires and aspirations and concerns and wants and needs and fears and doubts, I'm putting all of it. Everything that makes up this human person, I'm laying it all on the altar and saying, not my will, but thine be done. It's all yours. Father, it is finished. Into thy hands I commit my spirit. just poof, letting it go, including your life. Right? So that it's in a sense it's the same in the fact that you really are just taking your hands off of it, but the surrendering goes deeper. It goes deeper even than allowing, right? Because it brings to it, I'm allowing. Why am I allowing? To get something? No. I'm allowing because I want to let go of everything that is not the truth, everything that is not myself, and everything, even how much I cherish it and want to hold on to it, I lay it on the altar to truth. So you can see it's got a very spiritual, very, very sacred air about it. So, yeah, I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Julian. Martin, hello, sir. How can one sense one's purpose here on earth or of life? What is the best way to dedicate one's lifetime? Well, the best way to do it is to be completely present and dedicated to this moment, right? It's a dedication to life. Life, the purpose of life. When people talk about the purpose of life, they're usually talking about some kind of calling, some kind of thing they're supposed to do, some kind of a life-defining activity, like I'm going to be a musician, right? Or an artist, or I'm going to find the cure for cancer, or save my people, or whatever, right? With the deliverer or something like that, right? And sometimes stuff like that happens, you know. Beethoven's purpose was clearly to be Beethoven, right? But for most of us, it changes over time. It goes from one thing to another. And actually, if you look closely, your purpose is to be fully yourself in this moment, to be living in this moment. If I'm looking for a purpose out there, I'm not seeing it. Because if you have a purpose, it's unfolding now. It's happening right now. You're just not seeing it because you're looking somewhere else. Right? It's not like you get your purpose. If you were born with a purpose, the purpose is fulfilling itself, whether you know it or not. It is happening. Right? I would, when I would go shopping with my ex-wife, she would love to go around. We go to these places. It would be crowded. And so her job, she would go off shopping, and my job was to stand in line. And just keep standing in line because there were long lines. And when I got to the front, to just keep letting everybody pass until she had come with her purchases. Right? And I would sit there and think and just kind of chuckle to myself, well, this is my life purpose. This is the reason I was born. Because right in this moment, that's what I'm doing. Now, one would look at that and go, well, that's not much of a life purpose, gee. And from that perspective, no, it's not. It wasn't finding the cure for anything. You know, I wasn't enlightening thousands, right? But in that moment, that was my purpose, obviously, because that's what I was doing. What's my purpose right now? This. What will my purpose be when this is done? I've got some dishes to do. I'm probably going to make myself some lunch, so my purpose will be to be a chef. I may have some other videos to make for something coming up that I'm planning, or my purpose will be to be the stagehand, taking down the lights and putting everything away so I have my living room back to me. Right? Purpose is right now. Right now, your entire purpose of life, the reason you were born, was to sit here and ask me that question, to engage in this interchange. When this is done, then what? Whatever comes. Be 100% present in the now with what is here. That's your purpose. And you will find that will manifest itself in all sorts of different ways, in all sorts of different forms. And you will see that there'll be a consistency about it. Because the manifestation and the things you do, the things that happen will be unique to you. They'll be the things that only you can do. Just absolutely, perfectly for you. So, how's that, Martin? Hello, Tatiana. Welcome. Here's Rez Abassi. As a fellow musician, wondering if, when you perform, did you ever struggle to keep ego identity at bay in order to play freer, lighter? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I did find, because I love to play so much, I did find, I'm scrolling back here because it jumped ahead on me, that when I'd actually start playing and I'd be into the music, that wouldn't be there. In the actual playing itself, the ego fell away and there was just the presence. Especially if the audience was into it, which you would think be the time the ego would love it. Oh, the audience is into it. Look at all the things I'm doing. It was exactly the opposite. When the audience wasn't into it, right? You had one of those audience that you just kind of like, God, when is this going to be over? Because at that point, you're just playing rote, right? There's no fresh energy. There's no inspiration happening. You're just kind of going through the motions. And that's when the ego's there complaining and not liking it. And why are they doing this? And I can't wait to get out of here. But when that moment of performance is happening and it's really working and the audience is into it and you're just kind of feeling it and you're working, you're not just playing the piece, you're playing the room. There's just this wonderful energy that takes place. The ego it's not there. It's like, the sports players that, you get them on interviews and stuff, they're just arrogant as hell. But when they're playing, there's no ego there. They are purely in the zone. The ego can't be there because it can't work that well. The ego's not that good, right? Then, of course, there is a natural praise of the artist. If somebody's really good, there's a natural, when the performance is over and people are around telling how wonderful you are and that sort of thing, or you're getting flirted with, it can certainly go to your head. It does to most. You just have to keep an eye out for it, and when you succumb to it, go, well, there it was again, and just keep loving the music, loving what you're doing. As long as the love for it, as long as it doesn't get turned into a vehicle for your ego, you'll be safe. The music will be safe. You'll be an artist at that point. The ego will come and go, and as your spiritual growth increases, it will become less and less and less of a factor. And you'll see that the real source of the creative impulse is the infinite intelligence that is consciousness. And you are that. And you didn't make it, didn't create it, didn't create anything. It's just happening spontaneously because that is the nature of being itself. And then there's no ego in that at all. So, thank you for that question, Rez. Isabel, how do we see if we have grown out of a relationship that it feels at times it's worn out? Hello from South Florida. Well, if it feels like it's worn out, it is, right? Now, when I say that bluntly, what's the cause of a relationship becoming worn out, running its course? Well, it's going to happen in every relationship, right? This idea of marriage for life and, no matter what, don't get divorced, or, is patently absurd, right? The only way a relationship could last for an entire lifetime is if you had two people that were mutually compatible on all levels, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, interested in the same things, sexually, and at the same time, we're growing at a reasonably similar rate, right? And also had a diversity of interest, so there was always something fresh being brought to the relationship. Now, that doesn't happen very often, okay? um, but it's possible. Right? If the two people in the relationship have dedicated the relationship and the relationship of the other to being free and providing an environment where the other can go free, you've got the best possible setting or environment for a long-term relationship to happen. Because that means you're not holding on to who they were yesterday or 5 years ago. You realize that every day you wake up, you're waking up with somebody else. Nobody stays the same. Our minds want to freeze people, and then all of a sudden, a long period of time goes by and go, who is this? I don't know them. Well, no, you don't, because you've been staring at this idea you had of them, living with that idea, and when that idea is no longer matching the behavior they're offering, we think there's something wrong with them, right? So it can be that a relationship runs its course, right? They do. There's nothing that says they're not supposed to. It doesn't feel good. It always hurts, because when we're bound to somebody, we're bound up energetically. There's all sorts of interconnections and the like going on. So many decisions you're making. When you make them, you're automatically thinking of them. You always think in terms of the two. So there's a whole dynamic that's become quite automatic, right? Which is the real discomfort in it. It is simply, it is like any loss. The nervous system takes some time to readjust itself to the new environment. And at first, it just wants to hold on. It doesn't even care that it's not good anymore, or it's worn out, it's not satisfying. It would rather have that, because it's used to it, than endure the discomfort of having to adjust to being single and then another relationship. So it really depends on the nature of the relationship with you and the man or woman, no idea what your preference is at, and where they are in growth spiritually, where you are together, where you are apart, and so it's not the kind of thing I blankly say that you should or you shouldn't. But what you're looking for is, are you holding an image of them that is old? Have you just really opened the idea that they're not the same? Which means and you're not the same? Which means the possibility is there of meeting and falling in love again, right? Oh, I really like this guy, right? Oh, cool, right? Or, this, who you are now is just, it's just, no, it's not for me, and who I am is no longer for you. That's how you come to see. It takes some real soul searching, because remember, your nervous system is going to be reluctant to do it. It's going to want to keep everything the same, which is why this process is difficult. And it gets more difficult is if one of you is like, it's not working, and the other thinks it is, right? The other's quite satisfied with the way it is, for whatever reason. And oftentimes, if they are, it's because they've blinded themselves to stuff. Because if you're feeling this way, they're not getting their needs met, right? That kind of genuine intimacy that we all thrive on, it isn't there. It's kind of going through the motions. So it's not completely true that somebody thinks it's okay. What it means is they've settled for less than you're willing to settle for. So I hope that gives you something to work with for trying to kind of navigate this territory, which is not easy territory to navigate. So thank you for bringing that to me, Isabel. Hello, Mary in Niagara Falls. Steffi, hello, Steffi. Namaskaram ji and everyone. Is it somehow possible to communicate with people that are not alive anymore? Is their energy still here? In my case, my father died unexpectedly, and there are lots of things I would have liked to tell him. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Love you. Well, tell him in your heart. We don't have to prove whether. Remember that the majority of what you experience of a person is the energetic impact they have on you and your perception of them. That's what we have a relationship with. So I answered somebody's question early on. I think it was Roberto's question early on. That we interact with our thoughts and feelings and expectations of others more than the actual others. Your perception is the sum total of your existence. Are they still here? Is their energy still there? I could say yes and no. Right? And actually, for what you're wanting to experience, there's no need to know a yes or no to it. It doesn't have to be an objective fact or not. Right? You have a desire to just tell him things you would like to have told him. So tell him. Sit down. Write to him. You could write it out if that helps you organize it. Or you could do it in a video. Or you could just talk out loud by yourself, walking around a room as if you were talking to him. And just completely open and honest, say everything that you wanted to say. And just keep doing that. And you may have a sense that it has been heard, right? And there'll be a sense of equanimity, a sense of completion that will emerge from that. Somehow it will work out. And we don't have to know all the details of the veil between this life and the next life, this form and the next form, who he was, who he is now, where did he go, and we don't have to deal with all of that to get the kind of emotional clarity and freedom that you're after. And that's simply being able to have this heart-to-heart with your Father. So just do it, and let me know what happens. Let's see. Hey, Daryl. Hello, GP and all. Hello, Sifu, says Penny. Oops. Got sidetracked. Here now. Good. And all my students from my class are saying hi to each other. Truth Loops, hello. Love you all. Grateful for life and the opportunities to overcome its many wonderful challenges. What a beautiful sentiment. What a beautiful sentiment. Yes, I am so grateful for life as it is. Most people say, I'm grateful for life when it works the way I want it to work. Even the gratitude lists for raising your vibration, right, are all the ways in which I'm grateful for all the things that are working the way I wanted them to work. How about just being grateful for life and the wonder of it and the surprises of it and how it catches you off guard and how it's smarter than you are and it knows better than you are. And if you have an argument with life, you're wrong. As simple as that. And just whatever's happening in this moment is what is needed to be happening. And it's my job to let go of my story about it, let go of my resistance to it, and harmonize with it. That's what it means to live the Tao. So, beautiful for that. Thank you for that. Joy, Leighton Winterberg in Wisconsin. Hello, Joy. Christina Leftwich, hello from Michigan. Hello to you. Lydia, greetings. Love to you all from Germany. Hello, Lydia. Roberto says, I did your meditation, just allow it, because I could not go back to sleep last night, 6 a.m. I fell asleep and you were in my dream, completely white and hugging me. You made me feel very comfortable. Oh, Roberto, my brother, my younger brother, which is getting on most people these days, younger brothers and sisters. Kakwenda, hello Kakwenda, greetings from Kampala. Is education purposely to make masses be obedient and reward conformity while suppressing creativity? Yes. Yes, it is. Our modern education system originated, it was the system devised for teaching 15th century monks, training 15th century monks, right? Before anybody could read or anything. They're the only ones who could read and write. So it's very regimented, very much around the church and hierarchy and authority and all of that. And it just got adapted into the schools as it became more widely available. And when the Industrial Revolution happened, the education was required to turn people into factory workers, laborers. That was what it was for. It's always been for that. That's what it's for now. And so it is the antithesis of what real education is. And it's gotten worse. I mean, I got a lot of that, obviously, the enculturation and the like. But there were also opportunities there was a very rich arts program when I was going to school. Lots of money for the arts, band and lessons all through grade school and the like, into high school. Lots of opportunity for that. There was more critical thinking. There was more teaching reasoning and that sort of thing. But it's become more and more and more about just meeting certain standards, having conformity, and basically turning people into mindless consumers. Technicians, people who can build the stuff, and consumers, people who will buy it. Yes, that is our education system. And so it becomes the responsibility of every individual to become responsible for their own capacity for real critical thinking. That is, to be able to assess the relative value of something. And that means, of course, to do that, you need sources of good information, which we don't have any of. And because we have such bad sources of information, we get, we get extreme conspiracy theories, we get extreme polarized views on everything from gender and race and everything else. We have the corporate narrative, we have governmental narrative, and no real source of genuine, trustworthy information. The entire system has been more or less corrupted from top to bottom. So it behooves everybody to simply to take things into yourself, to your heart for checking. Don't just jump on them because they match an opinion you have, right? Really look. Right. Really look. I think an example is I've seen various postings about the ingredients in the vaccines, right? And all this nasty stuff. So, I don't put it past the companies to do that. To put other nasty stuff in there for nefarious reasons. I do not put it past it. Mostly for make profit, just like cigarette companies put extra ingredients into cigarettes to make them more addictive. Right. They will do this kind of stuff. The internal documents from the pharmaceutical companies have made it quite clear that they are not interested in cures. They want long-term customers, right? But all these different lists of ingredients, I could not find anything corroborating that. When I found every source I could find that had any degree of reputation, all had exactly the same list. What am I going to do? Right? Okay. That's what it is. Right? So you have all these other. So lots of people throw it out there because there's this fear that they're going to do it, and an underlying understanding that they will, if they can. Right? The question is, did they? Right? And that's what I just used that to make a confirmation, to confirm for myself what actually is here. And this is the difficulty in our modern world of actually trying to find trustworthy information. Because all of the news outlets are owned by the same bunch of people, and they're all slanted. All of them, bar none. Right? Not just Fox News, but MSNBC. They're all the same. They all serve corporate interests. So enough on that. I'm not going to get on a rant about it. Hey, my sheik, it was a great occasion to talk to you via video call. I love you. Oh, I love you too, Faith. And it was so good to be with you. Yes, and yes. Fiona, hello and greetings from Greece. Thanks for the Powers of Creation course, G. Loved it. And keep listening to it. Yay, good. It could still be bought if anybody wants to buy it and go through it. The live class has taken place, but if anybody wants it, you can still go to gpwalsh.com/4powers. You explained to me what here and now means. I've got it. So timelessness and change. Yes, very good, Tatiana. Oh, Christ. Christ is here. Is our entire life in the now? What about when we were children? Yes, of course it is. When we were children is a memory you're experiencing in the now. In the now of the child, you were simply having child thoughts, child feelings, child experiences, child everything. You were just, the world you were experiencing was simply the world of the child. But the child didn't last, did it? The child was constantly transforming, right? From the moment the sperm met the egg, there's been this constant transformation that will continue until this pattern of energy that has managed to maintain some degree of an integral form will eventually just kind of dissipate back into its original elements, right? All of which is being viewed in the now. So, yes, the now, your entire life. If you mean, is all the events of my life compressed into the now? The answer is, you could say yes or no. Experientially, no, it's not. It is just a series of things happening. If you see the now as this infinite presence, well, then it's all happening simultaneously. But that's actually a bit too heady. The now cannot be defined in terms of infinite time. It is timeless. Just like the self cannot be defined in terms of infinite space. It is dimensionless. It is beyond, even infinite doesn't capture it. Right? Because that seems like unlimited space. Just eternity is unlimited time. What we're talking about is timeless. So it isn't like it includes everything that is, was, and will be. It simply is timeless. It does not exist in time. Right? Time exists in it as an experience. Cool. Faith said, I was pondering about cause and effect as you explained last time, and I think that makes everything possible. For example, getting a job is not affected about how good my CV or where I'm from. Bingo! Well done. The moment you dismantle that belief in cause and effect, you'll see that this moment is spontaneously generated. And the only reason it bears resemblance to the previous moment is because I believe the previous moment is creating this one. This moment is a virgin birth. This moment stands all by itself. Everything from the past is past. And unless it is believed to be an influence, it is completely irrelevant. Isn't that freeing, Faith? Beauty, beauty, beauty. Robbie, thank you for answering. I can only speak from experience. I had moments where I saw the narrative of time while being. Yes. Outside, yes. Outside of it, yes. Being experienced by it and in it. But it's only an experience, a passing cloud. Right? The experiencer never moves. Dimensionless and timeless. Being just is. And if something just is, it isn't time. There's no change to be measured. It just is. Now remember, timelessness and dimensionlessness are words I'm using to point you to something because the mind can't grasp them. All it can do is help you to disassociate the now from just a bunch of time and a bunch of things happening, or now just being one in a series of moments, and recognize that it's something else. It pulls you more out of the definitions of the mind and more directly into your experience, which is right now. And is your experiencing ever changing? Does it ever fluctuate? Well, that's the infinite timeless now. That's it. It's you. It's always you. It's always been you. Red Rose, why do I have the need to argue back with a narcissist? is my way of saying, no, I won't let you walk all over me. But can it also be that maybe is my need to prove my worth? Or maybe it is my ego? Yes, but don't make a big deal out of that, okay? Dealing with somebody who is not, you end up in some kind of a tight relationship with it, be it family, be it work, be it romance, be it anything, right? Any kind of relationship where there's some degree of connection going on, interaction, right? Where you are in something together, right? And they're narcissistic. They cannot see your point of view, which is why you never feel heard, you never feel seen, right? Because you aren't, right? Now, there's this need to try to communicate, right? I mean, some of the hardest decisions I've made about breaking off relationships of all different kinds was realizing that they could not understand my point of view. So I simply had to just break it off. Right? That they weren't able to grasp it. And so don't worry about, you want to be seen. And a part of you doesn't feel completely worthy and wants to get some kind of acknowledgement for it. Right? But that's why you have me and all your friends here. To acknowledge you, right? You're not going to get it from him. Right? He's not capable of it, right? So you can just stop looking to him for that, and instead look to those around you, the people in the group, the people in the classes with, the people in this sangha, right? Who do acknowledge you, right? Who do see you, who see your value, who see your worth, and can reflect that back to you. Thank you, Sonia. Mark C. Hello, Mark. Just soaking up the wisdom instead of the hot Florida sun. Blessings. Ah, yes. Ah, Amy. Hello from Vancouver. Loving all of this. In Vancouver now. Wonderful. Yanis from Greece. Thank you, GP. Thank you for those precious insights on knowledge and time. Love from Greece. Ah, you're very welcome. By the way, sound is nice and loud today. Yeah, I really got it pushed. Pushed the gain, pushed everything. Perfect for those who listen from our cell phone. Right. Okay, Susanna. I am struggling to motivate regarding money, even though I am loving creativity. I feel a bit concerned because I will need a new income by July. Ah, yes, money. Render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar, and unto God the things that are God. We have to think about these things only as much as we have to think about these things. And no more, right? Okay, I've got to have some money. You've got to have some new income happening. You got some time, so you can begin to see how to do it. You may be able to spin the creativity you have into that money, creative activity and the like, but maybe not. So you might need to have a couple of things going on. A diversified portfolio, as it were, right? You don't have to be motivated to make money any more than you have to be motivated to brush your teeth in the morning. It's just functional. It's something you do, right? It's something, takes energy and time, right? More than, brushing your teeth in the morning. But it really is on that same level of functionality. When you're a creative in the spiritual path, the desire to make money simply isn't there. You don't have that desire for wealth, right? And you recognize that desire for wealth isn't healthy. It doesn't lead any place good. It never has, never will. And don't take my word from it. Plenty of studies. Having a lot of money does not lead to happiness. It does not lead to a sense of safety or security. In fact, it does exactly the opposite. And the more people make, the less empathy they have. The majority of money given to charities does not come from the wealthy. It comes from people who don't have much. The wealthy create foundations with tax write-offs and all sorts of things. So it isn't really even charity. It's a fraud. If anybody cares about reading about that, there's a book by Anandas Gurahandan, I think his name is, a book called Winners Take All, where he talks about the whole scam around these corporate foundations and the influence they have. Simply because they have money, they think they have the right to tell us how to live and what's important and what isn't. Anyway, but that not to be said. We can't adopt the position. We have to remain functional. So you need to give it as much attention as it needs and no more. So if that means you get a job at the coffee shop, so that you just have enough money to come. Well, that's what you do, and you don't make any kind of deal out of it whatsoever. What's the point of it? To make money. Like when I saw that computer, why did I start programming computers? They make money, and it was true. They did. As a matter of fact, for a while, it was very good money up to the late '90s. The internet thing happened. Then there was just an absolute glut of programmers and no work after the dot bomb. So you're simply redefining that relationship with money. If you turn money into something bad or evil, you'll push it away, right? Money is nothing. It is completely neutral, right? Hold that piece of paper, even what it represents. But it is such a powerful thing upon which we have projected all sorts of meaning. My survival, my freedom, my status, my value, all tied to something that is completely imaginary, something made up. Which is why Christ said the love of money is the root of all evil. He didn't say money was evil. He said the love of money was the root of all evil. And he made it even very clear. You can't serve two masters. You can't, because you'll either love one, right, and push the other away, or you love that one and push that one away. You can't serve God and money, right? Not that you didn't have to have it. And he said, yeah, you got it. He paid taxes and that sort of thing. But the love of it takes it from being just something functional into greed. Which is one of the 7 deadly sins and the 3 poisons of Buddhism, right? So Christianity, Judaism, and Buddhism all agree greed is a deadly sin. It's deadly. It's a disease. It is a form of insanity, and yet that's what runs our world right now. So you're establishing a new relationship with money, and you're going to determine what it is. What is money to you? Right? Throw out what everybody else says about it. Okay? What the media says about it, what Wall Street says about it, even what the person you may have to get a job with says about it, or the people who are buying courses from you have to say about it. What is it for you? What does it mean to you? You give it your meaning, and it'll become that for you in your life because you're the creator of it. It will conform to your feelings about it. But it's important to do the inner work around this, because money is one of those things. Money and sex and death are probably the 3 big things that have more mixed messages than anything else in our culture. And it is. Money and sex are also the 2 biggest destroyers of marriages. The lack of both. The work needs to be done to expunge all of the ideas, our assumptions about it, until it gets back to what it is. It's nothing. It isn't happiness. I've never seen a laughing dollar bill, right? It's not freedom. It's nothing at all. It's whatever I say it is, right? So you break it down to just the most functional, lowest common denominator. Okay, working with, in this particular system in which we're working, until we don't have to deal with it anymore, there's a certain amount I have to do. Right? And then you bring all of that in line with your own values, your own sense of what's important, and then you find the balance point, right? Right? There's that which is necessary to do, brush your teeth, take a shower, that sort of thing, right? Basic hygiene, taking care of some business that has to be taken care of, making a living. These are all part of just the functional parts of life. So they all get brought into perspective. Does that help you, Susanna? Jay says, this is kind of hard to talk about for me personally, but the other day after the live call, sometime later, the thought came to me about the dreaded day you won't be here with us physically. Yes. It will happen. And it's probably going to happen before you're not with us physically. So it's a beautiful thing. It's a great Buddhist practice to die before you die. And others dying before they die. Right? This body is not me. Right? When this body goes, I will be exactly the same as I've always been. I will be the same in the same place, in the same space as I have always been. The problem is that we think of it as a body. I think it was Steve Walensky was talking, and I read it recently. I think he was the guy, but anyway, somebody was having a conversation with Nisargadatta Maharaj, and Nisargadatta said, "You think I'm a person, don't you? You think there's a person standing here talking to you. You are talking to cosmic consciousness." Right? There's no person here speaking. Even the person who's so identified with the person, right? There's not a person there speaking. It is always the self that is speaking. And the self is not confined to any particular container. When this body dissolves away, I'm going nowhere. I will be here. It'll be just, you won't be able to see me is all. But the same influence, the same force, the same energy, the same guidance will be here. It will just not appear as this. But the animating power, the animating force, the animating wisdom is not originating with this body or this mind or anything about this me. This me doesn't even exist. So I'm not going anywhere. So drop your idea of me as a body and you'll find I'm there with you. I'm you. And I'm not going anywhere. Thank you, Che. And it's very touching you feel that way, actually. Alrighty, it is 2 hours. Canadian Boy said, I randomly joined this video and that's exactly what I needed to hear. Wonderful. Gina is grateful to be here. Ooh, 6 people in the house. Angels Knowledge. Hello from Pakistan. Hello, Kamal. Yes, hail. It's not Dale, it's hail, says Mary. Could you, would you, when? That's kind of the basic formula. Could you let it go? Is it possible to let it go? Would you let it go? Would you be willing to let it go if it was possible? And when is the other one. Could you, would you, when? When? How about now? If it's possible and you're willing to, why not now? That's kind of a very basic part of the process. Susanna says, thank you, G. I will reflect on what money means to me. Let's see. If there's... Oh, Hendrik, a bunch of them here. Okay. What you said about letting go is so precious. It saved my life, or better, ability to stay healthy facing strong challenges. Reading David Hawkins' Letting Go, Pathway of Surrender. Yeah, he's another one that... I don't know if he knew about Lester Levinston, because David Hawkins did come later. David wasn't that much older than me. Let's see. Hit that like button, people. Our purpose right now. I haven't listened to GP in many months, yet I randomly clicked this video and it answered all my questions. I guess it was my purpose at the moment. Amen. Purpose of my life is what I am doing now. Thank you for that answer to Martin. It was me as well. Great discovery. Tatiana, I listened to Dawson Church, a good friend of mine, talking about EFT on a trauma and resilience summit this afternoon. Lovely. Yeah, he is. He's a lovely man. Does growth really exist? Doesn't growth imply time? There's no growth for the self. We experience growth, right? Which is time. Yes, that's part of the change. Growth, evolution, expansion. That's what we detect as change. But for you, the witness of change, there's no growth. Consciousness doesn't grow. How can the infinite get any bigger? All right, I've got to call it now. I'm going to try to keep it more to 2 hours. My tendency is to just want to keep going with all the questions, but I want to draw to a close there. So, if you didn't get your question answered, you can email me questions at gpwalsh.com. I could take it up the subsequent satsang or on my radio show, which is on Tuesday. But for the most part, try to take into your heart that your question was answered. Maybe I didn't say it, but it was answered. And if you just cherish the question, the answer will come. It doesn't have to come through this body, right? Because the infinite intelligence that pervades the universe, this is just one body out of many it has access to, that it can make full use of. So, anyway, Glenn says, the grace that flows through you is beautiful. Thank you. Much love from New Zealand. Oh, New Zealand. One of the best countries in the world to live. Freeing Baba. Yes, freeing Baba. Good. Resonance manifest. Boy, look at these things. Anyway, thank you all. Thank you. And I'll see you all next week, if not sometime sooner. All my love to you. How do I get out of here? There it is. There's the button.